Welcome back to Movies Recap. Please like the video and interact with it to support the channel to continue to provide this content. Thank you so much. Outside a house, loud bomb explosions are occurring. Iraqi soldiers are preparing to flee inside while still waiting General al-Rawi. He tells his soldiers to wait for him at the safe homes while he leaves. There is an attack on Baghdad. A location is going to be raided by Chief Roy Miller and his mobile exploitation team based on reliable intelligence that has identified it as a site for chemical and biological WMD. Their task is to find evidence that Iraq has WMDs, which the U.S. and the rest of the world are impatient to see as it was one of the only reasons for the attack. They arrive in their Humvees close to the scene where another army squad, despite having a big platoon, is unable to protect the area from civilian looters who are taking anything they can lay their hands on away from the scene. Miller is attempting to enter the location with his team in order to secure and disable the WMD, but the other team is not cooperating. It's very disorganized. The head of the opposing team informs them that a sharpshooter is hiding out on the construction site. Miller and his squad enter after some tactical deliberation. They track out the sniper and kill him. They put on their masks and gear and examine the area in the dark, only to find it empty. Roy remarks that this is their third consecutive failure. As we return to the airport, we observe journalists waiting for the impending arrival of the new Iraqi minister. A WSJ writer named Lawrie Dayne approaches her source, Clark Poundstone, Greg Kinnear, a Pentagon intelligence officer, and requests additional information on Magellan. Although he claims to be trying, he has already given her everything he has because the information is so sensitive. She is very upset by this, but he doesn't pay attention to her and goes to welcome the minister as they head for the Green Zone, a protected area that was previously Saddam's Republic Palace. Even there, it is in rubble and fragments. Poundstone is promoting democracy for Iraq, but the anarchy that has taken over the nation is continually putting his cause in jeopardy. They meet, and Poundstone and CIA intel Martin Brown, who appears to be an expert in Iraqi matters, are hostile to one another. Martin points out to Poundstone that they still haven't found any WMDs and that they need assistance from the old guard in order to manage Iraq. Poundstone contends that it's only a question of time. When Roy Miller gets back to his camp, he goes in search of his boss. The intellect, he says, doesn't seem to add up. His employer politely tells him to shove it and claims that he cannot doubt the intelligence. Roy brings up the fact that his team has recently only received donuts at a group meeting since he is dissatisfied with the situation. When he is informed that the intelligence source is trustworthy and that all information has been validated, he is silenced. Martin Brown is there at this group meeting, and as Miller exits to investigate a different source, Martin approaches him and expresses his suspicions. Martin then provides Miller his phone number so he may get in touch with him if anything develops. Miller goes to the Al-Mansur site and starts digging for the WMDs while being surrounded by a massive throng of irate people who are upset about not having access to water. At one of the safe places, General al-Rawi is meeting with his senior-ranking former Iraqi army officers. They start talking about what to do now that American troops have invaded Iraq. They should wait and see, says General al-Rawi, who exudes calm and wisdom. Unaware, a local Iraqi resident on his way to his car observed the strange bunch approaching the residence. Miller and his colleagues are continued digging holes when suddenly one of Miller's cops is in trouble. When he arrives to investigate the issue, his soldier is sitting on top of the limping Iraqi civilian who is burying his head in the sand. The dude is definitely disturbed and struggling. When Miller starts to yell at the Iraqi civilian, Roy tells his guys to calm down. Before asking him what he wants, Miller gives him a moment to finish and gather his composure. The Iraqi claims to have information to impart, but he did not anticipate receiving such treatment in return. Miller inquires as to what it is, and the man replies that he spotted an unusual group of men entering the home while being guarded by AK-47 wielding bodyguards. Miller gathers his soldiers for an assault. One of Miller's men prefers to follow the rules and is very hesitant to deviate from their instructions. Nevertheless, he caves this time. According to Miller, they are unable to arrive in their Humvees, so they steal some damaged vehicles and follow the Iraqi to the residence. They begin to discover some of the participants are about to leave as soon as they arrive. General al-Rawi, who manages to flee by the back, is seen during the battle by Miller, who recognizes him as the Jack of Clubs. They apprehend the meeting's organizer, who is carrying a small black book purportedly detailing the locations of the safe houses and the plans. The individual, when questioned by Roy, claims that only al-Rawi is aware of the whereabouts of WMD. 3 Army helicopters carrying special forces fly in just as they are about to return the captives and start bossing the Met around. The detainees are removed by them. Miller successfully hides the Freddy book from the Special Forces. Miller questions how the Special Forces were able to learn of their raid so swiftly and why his one solid tip on the WMD sites was ignored. Poundstone learns of the capture, and their agreement changes because he is unable to give Lawrie any more reports. Miller calls Martin after receiving the book back. Miller's group divides into two and decides to reconvene at the Republic Palace pool, where they observe revelers consuming Domino's pizza and consuming beer. Martin receives the black book from Miller, who also urges him to head to the meeting host because he knows where Al-Rawi is. Martin promises to make every effort. Miller approaches Lawrie for information after spotting her, and he replies that he'll keep it in mind. He searches for her articles on the internet in his room and discovers that they share many of the same coincidence sources for the WMD sites as his intel brief. For information, the meeting's organizer is being tortured. He continues to bring up the book. Martin may have it, according to Poundstone. Martin phones Miller and claims he was successful in getting him admitted to the facility. He pays the meeting host $1 million to promise not to tell his interrogators anything. Miller is astonished since he had assumed that everyone in America was on his side. Martin cautions him not to be so foolish. Miller and Freddie fabricate a tale to meet the meeting host while at the prison. He has been tortured brutally, and they discover this. Miller is questioned by the meeting host as to why he was handled in such a manner. After all, they did not agree at the meeting that they would be treated properly. Miller queries whose meeting, to which the host replies in Jordanian. Poundstone has received a presidential directive to invade the CIA office in Baghdad and seize the black book in the meantime. Poundstone tracks down the Iraqi guards to kill them using the addresses from the black book. Miller rushes to find Lawrie, and when he does, he realizes that the Magellan she is searching for is Al-Rawi, who had previously visited Poundstone in Jordan and exposed the true state of Iraq's WMD program, which was basically that there weren't any. No one checked the information's source. Poundstone provided it to her and then exploited her to spread the rumor and create the myth. Miller understands that Al-Rawi is currently the only person who can come forward and put everything into perspective. But Poundstone, who is advancing his democratic agenda, does not want his shady tactics to come to light. Poundstone broke his promise to the Iraqi old guard by promising them a position in the new Iraq when in reality he had no intention of doing so. The U.S. should not have invaded Iraq if it did not have an operational WMD program. Instead, it should have led Iraqis to form their own government, and not have U.S. put a democracy there. The hunt for Al-Rawi starts. Poundstone and his soldiers to hide the truth regarding WMD, and Miller to uncover the truth. Miller is taken prisoner by Al-Rawi and subjected to torture, but he learns directly from Al-Rawi what transpired at the meeting in Jordan. When they are being followed, Freddie emerges and shoots Al-Rawi. Miller is instructed by him to let Iraqis handle the situation. In order to get it right this time, Miller writes his intel brief and sends it to all the publications before getting ready to go for home. He focuses on the fact that Iraq has no WMD. Additionally, democracy fails because no Iraqi organization wants a puppet president who is subject to U.S. government control.